being a part.
News, weather, and traffic. And the biggest stories of the day. We're talking about what matters most in West Michigan and beyond. This is the Big Three. Now, today's Big Three.
It's the stories that you'll be talking about around the water cooler, the dinner table, no matter where you are. Our Big Three, powered by our good friends at Heartland Home Mortgage. You know, we say it, it's true. In fact, for the last, year or so, I had been talking about how there'd never been a better time to buy or refi. And if you heard that call and you made the call, in fact, folks, you probably saved thousands, like many others, including myself. If you didn't, it's still not too late to make the phone call. In fact, if you do so, you could save lots. You know, they are, in fact, working with people on a daily basis because we're feeling the crunch everywhere we turn right now. We're feeling the crunch in so many different ways. Our bills constantly going up. Yeah, we're watching it happen. And, of course, maybe you need to put a little bit more money back in your pocket. Everything has gone up from gas to groceries. Well, there's only one way you could find out. Make the call, see what they can do for you, because there may be ways that they can help you. Everybody's different. Every single one of us has our own situation. And, of course, they'd love to walk you through what they can do for you. And if they can't help, they'll tell you. They'll shoot you straight. That's why I love the good guys at Heartland Home Mortgage. Dave Galloway and the team, give them a call today at 616-974-9105. That's 616-974-9105. Or go online to hhmlending.com.
Number one.
Biden announced a new program that would transfer responsibility for student loan debt to the backs of taxpayers. Yes, that is the unfortunate truth. You're hearing today a lot of words like, well, student loan forgiveness. This is anything but. In fact, all of this does is transfer that money from one place to another, from one pocket to another. In fact, taxpayers, you and I, many that decided that they were going to take a different route. You know, the bricklayers, folks working in the factory, people driving trucks for a living. They were going to take a different route. Didn't take student loans. They're the ones who are going to be paying for these student loans to be paid off. It's really, folks, a bailout for the big banks and the crooked schools that have ripped these people off over time. So we'll talk more about this. And, of course, we've got clips from Biden and whatnot on the way. But here's how it's going to work. Those who currently owe debts would be eligible up to $20,000 in student loan debt wiped out by taxpayers. Individuals with Pell Grants could have $20,000 transferred out. Those who make less than $125,000 a year, $250,000 for family married couples. They could have $10,000 if they didn't have Pell Grants. $10,000 each. So the Biden administration move going to cost taxpayers $300 billion over the next 10 years. Economists say not good for business, not good for you, not good for the American people, because it could drive inflation through the roof even further. 73%, listen to this stat, 73% of the canceled debt will go to households in the top 60%. They'd like to make this out to be helping out the folks who need it most, but really it's helping out the folks, the doctors, the lawyers who have the income.
Number two.
Uvalde School Board voted unanimously Wednesday to immediately terminate the contract of District Police Chief Pete Arredondo. We talked a little bit about this not too long ago. Disgrace. District Police Chief, in fact. He's come under fire. Intense scrutiny over the last couple of months of the law enforcement response to the May 24th massacre, the deadliest attack on schools here since 2012. During the events of that day, the attacker remained in two adjoined classrooms, in fact. You may remember this. 4 hours before police were allowed to respond, he was in control. He was in charge. He's denied that now. That's real leadership, apparently. And that's why he's on his way out. Arredondo gone. The Justice Department will have until noon today, speaking of lack of leadership, they'll have until noon today to decide what they should or should not be including in the document that was used to justify the FBI raid on Trump's home, probably taking a black Sharpie marker and marking through nearly all of it. They're expected to file a redacted version of that affidavit, completely blacked out nearly later today. Obtain a search warrant. What was in it? What do you and I need to know about it? They'll have the latest on that, of course. When that happens, we'll keep you up to date. I expect we'll talk about that a little bit tomorrow if we do get any of that information. All right, folks. We are going to join the phone lines this morning. I'm going to open them up tomorrow, Free for All Friday. You've got a chance to jump on the line right now. 616-774-2424. Also, the iHeartRadio app, wherever you see that microphone there next to the play button, go ahead and click that. You can sound off. You can rant, rave. You can ask a question. Whatever you'd like to do, enjoying the program. Dave's on the phone this morning to kick us off. Dave, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Justin. Thank you.
You got it. What can I do for you?
Pelosi, I had two very, very quick things. Pelosi came on TV the other day. I couldn't believe that she was actually saying it, but she said that the president does not have the power to forgive debt. So she comes on TV and says that. So she said he only has the power to extend the deadline or push it back.
Mm-hmm.
And then my second question, I was at Lighthouse Baptist the other night, and they mentioned that there was, that one thing that were collected signatures, that more than double the signatures were had. And then someone asked the question, how is that going? And we were told that it's not even going to be on the ballot.
Which one are you talking about?
I think it was the one about voter security.
Yes, that passed. That wouldn't go on the ballot. That would just go straight to the legislature. They'd vote, and it would go in. That would secure my vote, and that would then be made law. So yes, that's good news. Not bad, but
because he seemed to indicate that the attorney general or something had not looked at it, but the abortion one. Of course, she had looked at it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different. So there's a lot of different things. I'll explain some of this, Dave. I appreciate the phone call. Thank you for calling.
One last thing.
Sure.
That $300 billion you're talking about, you said it doesn't benefit me, and I agree with that because of my voting position. But if I'm a Democratic congressman or somebody that wants to get into office, then it would benefit me, I guess, in that case, that small case, which is not a good thing for us, but whatever.
You got it. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. Yeah, look, let me tell you, this might be, this might not be a popular opinion, but I'm going to tell you something. Some of these folks who took out the student debt, the loans, okay, I don't really blame them completely. I know, by the way, I didn't have any, neither did my wife. But I know several folks who got bogged down in a lot of these degrees. I mean, to this day, it's still a problem. They'd go to school and they get a degree, they get another degree. And, nothing that the school ever did for them or gave them, the piece of paper, never really amounted to much in the real world. That's the problem. These scam schools are fleecing these kids, and they still haven't gotten this fixed. By the way, not only are they fleecing the kids, putting them in debt, indenturing them to a life of servitude, they don't even get a job in the thing that they went to school for when they came out. I mean, it's ridiculous. You look at how much, $100,000 or more in debt. A lot of times these folks pile it on, and then what, the job that they get when they get out, so it may be $30,000, $40,000. It's ridiculous. It's criminal what they're doing to the kids. It's criminal. But you know what they're also doing in the process of all of this is they're indoctrinating them. They're indoctrinating them in this process. And that's another issue with what's happening. So do I have a problem with actual debt forgiveness? No, I don't. That's actually biblical. Real debt forgiveness is biblical. That's a real thing. Talked about in the Bible over and over again. In fact, you could see this if it were really to take place. I think it would be a great thing. But we're not talking about debt forgiveness. What we're talking about is a transfer of that debt. The taxpayers are going to take it up. The banks aren't really forgiving the debt, folks. That truck driver is going to pay. That truck driver, that factory worker, that person who's doing a skilled labor position, maybe a bricklayer, they're going to pay for the student loan debt of the lawyer or the doctor or maybe teacher, someone else who went to school to get that thing, get that degree, and of course come out and maybe they're working, maybe they're not. I don't know. That's the problem that I think most folks have. It's theft. You're taking money, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. In this case, what it is a reverse Robin Hood. Biden is robbing the poor to pay the attorneys, the doctors, the high income earning individuals. Well, let me give you that stat again. I mentioned this in passing, but I don't want to gloss over it. This could cost taxpayers, you, me, the rest of us, $300 billion over the next 10 years. Not to mention, it also increases inflation because now you got more money out there circulating and, of course, more money out there flying around, buying up fewer goods and services. That's a whole nother issue for another day. But the truth is that you're going to have to pay more for everything. 73% of that debt that will be transferred, 73% of the debt transferred will be transferred from the top households in the top 60%. 73% of people affected by this are in the top 60% of income earners. Now, do the math on that. It doesn't add up. We're not talking about actual, and this is government Democrats. You got to watch them. They do this all the time. Politicians they're notorious for this, but they use these words and they completely change the definition of things. They're not canceling debt. They're transferring it. They cancel and change definitions on a daily basis. In fact, here is, as Dave mentioned just moments ago, Nancy Pelosi in 2021 saying that the president had the power to do this. And then here she was just the other day saying he could.
People think that the president of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness.
Yeah.
He does not.
Oh.
He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. That has to be an act of Congress.
Oh.
Well, we're excited about the president because we didn't know what authority the president had to do this, and now clearly it seems he has the authority to do this.
No, it's election year scam is what this is. An election year scam in a situation where they're buying votes. Just call it what it is. I mean, it's they're buying votes. Again, I wouldn't have a problem if they just wiped out this, canceled the debt, if the banks were able to do that, wipe out the debt, cancel the debt. But the problem is when they go taking from one person to pay another. That's a bad idea. If we're going to start canceling debts, hey, why don't we start canceling? I got mortgage debt now that identifies as student loan debt. You know, I got some credit card debt that identifies as student loan debt. Anybody got debt on a boat right now that identifies a student loan debt? No? Okay. You get my point. More on this. In fact, I've got some clips from Biden yesterday. He was asked, he pushed him, put him on the spot, asked, is it unfair to people who paid their student loans or chose not to take out student loans to make them pay for this?
Breaking down the story. It's West Michigan Live with Justin Barclay on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
College football is back, and to celebrate the best time of the year, new DraftKings Sportsbook.
All right, folks. Appreciate you being here with us. We got phone calls to get to. You're hanging with us. Yes, the colleges, the universities, the scam schools are bloated. You think a bank can just wipe out debt? The future loan processing fees will include that debt. Can they just wipe out that? They can do whatever they want. A for-profit organization, though, they're financially, and they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders, etc. The banks are not likely. In fact, let me just say this. This is the best way to put it. They're not in the business of doing that. They're just not. But wiping out debt, forgiving debt forgiveness is biblical. It happens. It occurs in the Bible over and over again. It is a biblical thing. That's not what this is. This is something completely different. And again, it's not happening where people have said, I would like to donate money to have the debt wiped out for these people. There aren't groups of people coming together and said, I'd like to donate money. What they're doing is they're saying, we're going to take that money from you. So. All right, don't hit the mad faces today, folks. Somebody said, by the way, that affects how Facebook sends this video out to people. So don't hit the mad faces. If you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Getter, YouTube, all over the place today. Make sure you click share no matter where you watch it. No matter where you watch it. What did Shelley say? I missed it, Steve. Can't do it without Congress approval, and also doesn't go into effect until January something. Yeah. There's a lot of this that I'm sure we'll continue to unpack, but you're right. Now, there is a something on this, actually. What he's doing, he's using this thing from September 11th. Post 9/11. Hang on, I'll get into that too coming up second. Join us on the program at any time, 616-774-2424. Behind the scenes live stream chat is on fire today. You can jump in the chat. Join us there. Love to see you, of course, at Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Getter, and all the rest of the usual suspects. Sound off MKD Funeral Homes. They've got the talkback button there on the iHeartRadio app. Just tap that microphone and you're in. Rant, rave, ask a question or more. Chris is on the line with us right now. Chris, good morning. How are you?
Oh, hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure, brother.
So pretty much already made the point I was make that, it's not really, it's not really about forgiveness at all, that it's actually, just the cost being transferred to taxpayers, and that's actually bail out the banks.
That's exactly what we're looking at. And unfortunately, I don't think people realize this. It's going to be it's a political move. And the way they're selling it is they're going to help out, the little people. But the little people are the ones who are going to pay for it. Chris, I appreciate the call. In fact, I've got there's some question about how they're able to do it, what they're able to do. Biden administration using a post 9/11 law as legal basis for canceling the student debt. well, let's call it what it is, transferring it to the backs of other taxpayers. That story, I'll break through that, kind of walk through what exactly Biden had to say when he was asked that question just the other day. Is it unfair to make people who didn't take out student loans, is it unfair to make other people and folks, people that don't make as much as some of these folks who do have these student loans, is it unfair to make them pay the price for it all? We'll get into that and more coming up next after our break here. Check our headlines, bottom of the hour. Back next. It's West Michigan Live. This is News Radio 1300 1069 FM. There you go. Denise read on Getter that they implemented a social credit system in the inflation bill, and it goes into effect in December. Anybody else read that? No, December seems like a weird time for that to happen. I think we are, but to that point, I think we are still just kind of learning what is actually in that Inflation Reduction, so-called Inflation Reduction Act. Does anyone know if these spending bills and acts can be reversed with a change of administration? Anything can be, but of course, you're going to need the House, the Senate, and of course, the White House to make that happen. Sherry's making lunch plans over here on the chat with Bonnie. Want to go to lunch after the show? I'm kind of jealous of you all. That sounds like fun. Shouldn't the schools that receive the money be at least partially responsible, Marilyn says? Great point, Marilyn. You would think, right? And yet, and yet they still, and they do nothing. Today, they could stop some of this from happening. They say, we got into big problems here doing some of these things. Let's stop some of this. Let's stop some of the madness. No, they're doubling down. They're continuing. And what's worse is this sets up an environment for other people who, let's say I'm more likely to go into further debt because I know that, hey, maybe I got a chance of getting it forgiven. $10,000. It's not for the folks that have student loan debt. It's not a lot of money. $20,000 for the Pell Grants. That's a little more. So a lot to consider here. The only student loan that I have was for a semester of online schooling I never even signed up for after years of arguing with the school. Maybe this will be a different way of erasing it, Jessica says. That sounds like a real scam. That sounds like a real scam. All right, let's see here. Did I say good morning to everybody yet? Let me do some of that here. Good morning, Paula, Tim, Rayanne, Denise, Mike, Johnny, Michelle, Mary, Bonnie, many others jumping in this morning. Jackie Ray over on Rumble, HW, Roxanne, Gritter Dunn, Mary Kay, Tom, Brumby's fan, the Crusader, Lady Blah Blah, Jim, appreciate you being here with us today, and the Getter folks, Alex and Flatlander, Nana Kay, Miles, Tanya, Romad, Sheila, lots of folks jumping in. You ever notice that when they bail people out, like, they bail out the banks, but they won't bail you out? You never notice that? They're going to let's say bail out big banks, but they won't bail you out. In fact, in this country, we have this system of privatizing profits and then socializing the losses. So whenever there's an issue, these big banks, the companies, they can go in, big business, they go in corporations, and they can actually run up the tab. They get all the profits, but if God forbid anything happens, The minute they start losing and they're going to fail, remember too big to fail. The minute they're going to fail, we throw that on the backs of the American people. They're too big to fail. We can't let this happen. And of course, bam, there you go. Patty says, yes, biblical is wiping out all debt every 7 years. Yeah. And I don't remember. Let's see. Let me see if I can find see if I can find some of that. At the end of every 7 years, you must cancel debts. At the end of that's Deuteronomy 15:1. And then this is what they say here on the BibleHub.com. At the end of every 7 years, you must cancel debts. This is the manner of remission. Every creditor shall cancel what he has loaned to his neighbor. He is not to collect anything from the neighbor or brother, because the Lord's time of release has been proclaimed. Now, we don't do much biblically these days, do we? But I just wanted to tell you, you could make a case for that. You could make a case, but I think that's going to be very popular. Is it Jubilee year? Is that what they call it? I'm trying to remember how that works. Maybe somebody can bring us up to speed. The chat is on fire today. Yeah, credit cards don't follow the biblical ideology. No, they don't. You're right about that. Try that with American Express and see where you get with it. Try that with American Express. Okay, let me see what I got here. Justin, I understand. Feel like you're riding the crazy train some days? Yeah, I get it. Me too. And sometimes I just, I want off of this ride. Oh, man. Folks, things are just heating up. Appreciate you being here with us today. Lots of folks joining us on a behind-the-scenes live stream. You can do so. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Getter, all the usual suspects. This segment powered by our good friends at ProTech Heating and Cooling. You're thinking about putting in a whole home generator, because we've heard about all the issues with energy and electricity. Plus, wintertime here, sometimes we get those power outages from time to time, big storms, maybe ice storm, power lines going down. You can stay connected the entire time if you look at one of those whole house generators. And I hate to think about it, but at the end of the day, yes, summer's coming to an end, cooler weather on the way. You may want to get your furnace looked at. You can give them a call anytime. ProtechGR.com or call them at 616-323-9906. The folks I trust, ProTech Heating and Cooling. Question, comments, concerns, you can sound off, by the way, if you'd like to, over on the iHeartRadio app. Just click that button, the microphone button that's right next to the play button, and do it like she's done.
Biden bailout on the college loans is some join the military to use the GI Bill to go to college, and they never returned or severely injured. In other situations, parents sacrifice as it was growing up to save money to put aside for them to go to college. And what we're teaching these adults is that you can sign a contract and borrow money, and you don't.
Oh, you just cut off. We didn't cut her off. I think Timeline did. Yeah. I do think it sets a bad precedent, and it is going to make folks more likely to go, because they'll just assume, hey, maybe my wiped out. I did see something. I don't know. if you're feeling the pinch too, but I did see something the other day. I think it was 20 million households right now are behind. Yeah, there it is. 20 million homes behind on energy bills. Came from USA Today yesterday. It's a quiet story. Not a lot of people have talked about it, but 20 million homes behind on energy bills. It's because the cost of everything has gone through the roof, particularly energy. And the folks in the Biden administration have had a chance to be able to make a difference there, and yet they haven't. We still hear talk of just go buy a Tesla. You can't afford gas, go buy a Tesla. Plug your Tesla in. What does that do to the cost of energy? Pushes everything through the roof. Well, they're busy pushing wind, solar, unicorn farts, the rest of it, to get us at the end of the day to switch over to these, climate change friendly type of fuels. And it's driving the cost of the energy up, along with inflation, the rest of the other things, everything going up. More than 20 million U.S. households now are currently behind on utility bills. Electricity charges up 15.2% over the last summer. Some utilities report a more than 40% jump in the number of customers being shut off since pre-pandemic. You got it. All of this has to come together. You can't have one without the other. We have pieces of this whole puzzle that start to really, I think, create and paint a clearer picture when you look at it all together. You got to make sure that we do that. A lot of people are just treating these incidents, these things, like they just don't matter. John is on the phone. John, this morning. Good morning. Appreciate you being here, John. What can I do for you?
Hey, Justin. I have a thought here. Obviously, our current president is not capable of making this decision by himself. So I wonder what the root cause was, other than voting, the voting factor for younger people. That's one comment I have. The other one I have is, I really commend Governor Abbott in Texas for sending these folks to New York City. However, if he were to ask me my thoughts, I would like to see him send these folks to Wilmington, Delaware.
I'd love to see that.
The last question I have, or thought that I have, is that it is amazing to me. Could you imagine being the historians trying to put together items and information for Biden's presidential library down the road?
Yeah, well, it's going to be really fun. And I guarantee the National Archives, along with the FBI, won't be doing any raids on his home. I can tell you that much. John, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Let me address the first issue. Who is making the call? Well, we got a glimpse of that yesterday. Susan Rice made an appearance at press conferences yesterday. I haven't seen her in ages. She made an appearance out of the blue yesterday, and I thought that was really telling because I didn't recognize her at first. I go, oh, wait a minute, who is that? Because they kept showing these different people in different press conference. KJP was at the podium as well. But here's Biden himself walking out. I think this is ABC reporter asking the question, hey, is it fair to wipe out this debt for these people, but not for some of the folks like the one individual just made that claim? What about the people with the GI bills and they served in the military to pay for college? What about these other folks?
Mr. President, is this unfair to people who paid their student loans or chose not to take out loans?
Is it fair to people who, in fact, do not own multi-billion-dollar businesses that if they see one of these guys get them all a tax break? Is that fair? What do you think? What about people
that stare? Now, I know you're just listening to this on the radio. You heard how slow and kind of absent he was there. But the stare, if you were able to see it on the behind-the-scenes live stream, you saw the kind of emptiness, the just absentness in his eyes. Nobody's home. Nobody's home. It's just he's asleep at the wheel. It is something, isn't it? So how is he able to do this? Folks have been asking the question this morning as well. This from the Daily Caller. The Biden admin using post 9/11 law as legal basis for canceling student debt. Here's how it works. The law, known as the HEROES Act, was first proposed in 2003 and was intended for military members serving the U.S. in the wake of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. The text of the law allows for modification of federal student loan rules in the midst of a war or other military operation or national emergency. Well, there you have it. National emergency. See, it's the pandemic. Duh. That's what they'll say to you, right? Department of Education, in a memo issued Tuesday, cited the COVID-19 pandemic as reason for using the HEROES Act to legally cancel student loan debt. Now, whether this is legal or not, whether it actually crosses all the, T's and dots all the I's, checks the box, is probably not the case. I don't know how soon I don't know how soon some of this will start taking place, but once the genie is out of the bottle, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, how do they put it back? The HEROES Act, first enacted in the wake of September 11th attacks, provides the secretary broad authority to grant relief from student loan requirements during specific periods, a war, other military operation, or national emergency such as the present COVID-19 pandemic. You notice we're still in a national, they will not let that go. And yet here we are. You and I are living our normal lives. The only emergency we have right now is what these idiots, these fools keep doing to us. So that's what they're using. In present circumstances, this authority could be used to effectuate a program of categorical debt cancellation directed at addressing the financial harms caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, folks, it wasn't the pandemic. It was the response, the reaction, in a lot of cases, overreaction from the government in these cases that led to whatever issues, economic or worse, that we've seen in other places. Some of the mental health problems with kids, some of the issues that folks are facing on a daily basis, certainly the inflation. It wasn't the pandemic itself. It was the government. So they caused the problem, and then here we go. Here's your solution. We've got it all worked out for you. Doug on line 2. Appreciate you being here with us today, Doug. What can I do for you? Good morning.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Great, man.
Listen, I just want to make a quick point. A couple months ago, Debbie Stabenow made her little electric car rant that kind of bit her in the butt. And I think what got glossed over is part of her reasoning for it being better to have an electric car, because electricity is a regulated utility by the government. And, of course, oil is not. It's a speculative commodity, so it can go up and down. And I don't think people really caught on to what she was saying. He was basically saying that everything should be run by the government because it would be better. So we should regulate everything. We should regulate electricity. We should regulate food. We should regulate medicine because that would be better. Isn't that what she meant?
Yes, that is what she meant. In fact, when you hear the Secretary of Department of Education talk about this, and I appreciate the call. Let me see if I can find this for you. But he was asked about this. Stephen Portnoy, I think CBS, did an interview with him, and one of his responses, one of the things he said, talked specifically about what it meant and how great it was to have education paid for folks, and the fact that they didn't have to foot the bill. What he was silently saying, really the quiet part out loud, is that, look, this is what we want to do. This is what we've always wanted to do. We want to socialize all of this. Free college. That's where they're headed. They want you to come to government for everything. KJP weighed in. We'll get into that, plus a special treat when we come back. So hang in there, folks. Lots to cover this morning. We're doing our best. We appreciate you being here with us. You can join the program 616-774-2424. And, of course, that talkback button, the iHeartRadio app, back after this. Program almost over. Can you believe it? The jam-packed after show is on the way as well. So stand by for that. Stand by for news, as Paul Harvey used to say. DOJ still has until noon today to file redactions to the affidavit that was responsible for that warrant for the FBI raid on Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago. That's still to come. We got a bit of a Rona report we'll get to coming up this morning as well. Lots to talk about. Let me see. Any other talkbacks that I need to hit here? What's this?
Justin, I understand and am opposed to the cancellation of debts, but explain to me how that helps the big banks, since this is taking assets off their balance sheet.
Right now, those assets aren't being paid. And they're not taking all of them out. It's just $10,000 worth. So they're just paying $10,000 to these banks, to the institutions for now. Does that make sense? Maybe I'll play that on the air, see if we can work that out too. Hang on one second, folks. Be right back. All right. Let me see here. Back on the air in just moments. I will not pay for my kids to go to college and learn that they are evil and should bow down to any man or woman, Mr. C says. Mr. Campbell, I agree. I agree. We got this issue. I'm looking at that too. My question is, what do we do with our kids? And college is probably not the. Hey, Hillsdale's a great answer, though. That's a great solution, wouldn't it be? Hang on. Hey, I know sometimes it can feel a little crazy, right? You want some good news? There's plenty of it. People are making, I think, quite a dent in a lot of different ways. Each one of us is walking through some of this and on a mission in some different ways. And I got to tell you, we've shared some of that good news. We'll get into more of that coming up the after show. We got a jam-packed after show today. Lots of that coming up. You can join us at Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Getter, over on Facebook, YouTube as well. Just look for us at Mr. Justin Barclay. You'll be able to find us in justinbarclay.com. So hang in there, folks. I know sometimes it may seem like it, but it's not quite yet the end. It's not quite. We're not quite there. KJP being asked about it yesterday.
Again, here's what we have done.
Here's a lot about how much it might cost, it might not cost. Who is paying for this?
What we are saying is the work that this administration has done, work that the Democrats and Congress has done is actually there, and you see that the 1.7
word salad. Just a word salad. Who's paying? It's a good question from Peter Ducey. Who's actually paying for this? Well, you are, Peter. I'm paying for it. We're both of us are paying for this at this point. It's taxpayers are going to pay. You're going to pay the dime for it. Another one from the TalkBack feature, the iHeartRadio app. Just click that microphone button next to the play button there, and you can sound off, ask a question.
Justin, I understand and am opposed to the cancellation of debts, but explain to me how that helps the big banks since this is taking assets off their balance sheet.
Yeah, so basically it's not. There's some people that are going to have debts completely wiped out because they have less than $10,000. All they're really doing is they're taking $10,000 of that debt and wiping it off. $20,000 if they have Pell Grants. And this is only for people who are under $125,000 a year, or husband and wife together making $250,000. So this is only for a select group of people and only $10,000. And what is actually happening is you and I, the taxpayers, will pay. They say now they estimate the cost about $300 billion. We will pay $300 billion. They'll take that from us and give it to the banks. That's why it bails out the banks, because the loan should never have been made. And by the way, the scam schools are the ones who benefit from all this. The bloated scam schools, the ones that are taking advantage of these people. Look, they got all these teachers and professors and tenure, et cetera. I don't want to get into all of this right now, but they're indoctrinating kids, and they're not being held accountable. And we're going to continue going through with this, and we know that these policies are flawed. We're not going to fix the problem. We're going to patch it. And meanwhile, it's robbing Paul to pay Peter. It's Robin Hood in reverse. Pastor Joe Bevilacqua joins us right now. I asked Pastor Joe Bevilacqua to come on about something completely different, but since we got him here, might as well ask, because there's been some discussion about this. Is debt forgiveness biblical? Appreciate you being here with us, Pastor Joe. And forgiveness is different than theft, right? Last time I checked in the Bible, the two are kind of separate.
I guess so, Justin. Good morning. Debt forgiveness, yes, that existed in ancient Israel. It was a known thing. It was on a cycle, but it was Israeli civic law. Everyone signed up for that program beforehand. And this is totally different. If the government is ready to implement Jewish law, it ought to start with not lying. But this is really, if you want to bring in the Bible to this is what we would call unjust weights and measures. This is not something that is godly. This isn't something that he would endorse at all. And it's a transfer of debt. It's redistribution of wealth. And really what's happening is it's to buy political points in what I believe is a season where it's revealing a lot of desperation.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. Maybe we'll have you on to talk a little bit more about that at some other point.
That sounds great.
What I really wanted to have you on to talk about was education in some ways. Folks have headed back to school. Kids are on their way. Teachers are back in schools. And, you offered the other day prayer for those folks. And I thought, what an opportunity to do that here on the air. Let's talk about some of the good things. Let's get active in that fight and in a spiritual way. So I wanted to give you the floor to say a little bit of a prayer. We've got about a minute here. I don't know if that's enough, but I give you about a minute. Let's say a prayer if we can for our kids.
Boy, I'd be honored. At New Chapel, we prayed for students, teachers, administrators, private Christian schools, and homeschool families, and they all need our prayers. For most teenagers and young people, school is a very dangerous place. And so, Heavenly Father, we pray right now for all of our young people, the next generation. They need our prayers. God, we surround them with faith as a shield. God, we pray that they would go from glory to glory, faith to faith, and that, God, generation to generation, that they would see your goodness. God, we pray for the teachers, that some of them are in schools that are a rough place, but God, you have them there for a reason, and that they're a light in a dark place. God, I pray that they make relationship with kids and make a difference in the truest sense. God, I pray for this next generation because it is our greatest resource. If we lose them, we lose everything. God, we pray for their protection, their safety, and for godly education through it all. Lord, we thank you that we live in Western Michigan, where things are a lot different than other places, but we still pray for your favor in Jesus' name. Amen and amen.
Amen. Pastor Joe Bevilacqua, New chapel in that would be 4 Mile and Alpine here in Grand Rapids. And appreciate you being here with us today. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you for that prayer. We need more of that.
Yes, sir.
We need more of that
Yes,
these
sir.
days, don't we? Amen. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. God bless. More good news. You can join us, the behind the scenes live stream coming up after the show. We don't stop. We'll continue our conversation with you and be here with you. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Getter, and of course, JustinBarclay.com. Back tomorrow morning at 9:06, God willing. Make it a great day, folks. God bless. All right, folks. I appreciate you hanging with us. I just thought that would be worth doing this week as kids head back to school. You know, one of the things that I think that we don't talk about is there's still, and probably not enough about it, there are still some really good people that are being challenged, you know, trying to work their way through, make their way through, that are working in the schools, the teachers, faculty there working there that are trying to make their way through in a very tough system and make an impact on kids. So we ought to pray for them. We ought to pray for our kids as well. And folks, I just wanted to make sure that we had that opportunity to do that. I just felt moved that we needed to make sure we did that this year. Okay. Appreciate y'all being here with us today. Back to it. I'll get the behind the scenes live stream loaded up and raring to go for you, folks. Lots to cover this morning. It's the best part. It's the show after the show. That's why we call it the after show, right? Lots of people say, you know, this is the best part. Welcome in, folks, to the after show. It's the show after the show. That's why we call it the after show. Never a dull moment. Oh, we want to make sure that we keep you up to date. And of course, everything that's going on in the world today. And it's like drinking from a fire hose most days. Some of the stories you won't hear anywhere else, we cover them all. That's why we're glad that you're here for the after show. And of course, you can download the after show on the iHeartRadio app or anywhere you get your podcasts. We stream it on the behind the scenes live stream at Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, and Getter, where the chat is on fire today. On fire. Colette is she's actually she's requesting a particular clip, a video clip of Ron DeSantis making comments about Fauci, which is classic. We'll get to that coming up here in just a little bit too. We got a Rona report. All of these things you won't want to miss this morning. Lots of them to dig into as well. How are people taking this morning? And the folks on the streets in New York are sounding off on this student debt theft situation that we're undergoing right now. We'll get to that. Some funny commentary from a New York State Democrat primary winner who says, "We've proven that socialism wins." Oh boy. Yeah. And speaking of socialism, I heard this and I thought this was kind of interesting. I heard this. You want to teach your kids about socialism, you can do this. Have them clean the bathroom. You got 2 kids? Have one of them clean the bathroom, right? The other one sits and plays video games, whatever. Tell them you're going to pay them to clean the bathroom, and then when you do, have them clean that bathroom, and they're finished. You give the money to the kid who played video games. That's how you do it. Oh, there you go. The high priest of health, folks, St. Anthony of Wuhan. Mr. Booster, Tony Fauci. Anyway, he's back. It's just not for long. You know, yesterday I told you again that it looks like he's going to be retiring by a certain time, and they say December of this year is when he's out. Yeah, that's when he's stepping down, so to speak. They said, folks are asking questions about that. In fact, someone said if he does, when they see it, but if he does step down, please don't stop with the Fauci impressions. I don't know that we could ever stop that. He's just too funny. I mean, I have too much fun doing the Fauci impression. Almost as much fun as I had watching DeSantis talk about Fauci yesterday. In fact, I don't know if you saw this, but this to me I thought was hilarious. This is what he wants to do with Fauci. Ron DeSantis, governor in Florida.
And I'm just sick of seeing him. I know he says he's going to retire. Someone needs to grab that little elf and chuck him across the Potomac.
Oh. Grab that little elf and chuck him across the Potomac. Oh, my. Governor Ron DeSantis with the meme of the day, the video of the day. And that's when everything crazy was breaking loose, of course, with everything student debt wise. But that kind of snuck underneath the radar. I'm glad you asked for it this morning. That's a good one. That's a good one. I've got some stories that are did you see Dr. Jill tested positive again? What is going on? I think this is part of the reason why we see Narrative 2.0, where they've switched their push on masks and of course, I don't know if you've seen this, but it really is interesting. There is a new narrative that is starting. This might be Narrative 3.0, a new narrative that is starting to take hold. And some say it's all to make Trump the bag man. Leave him holding the bag. I saw this yesterday. I thought, well, that is really interesting. So they want to blame, and if they want to do this, chances are they'll probably have they'll have the ability to do this because he's been out there stumping so much, talking about the hokey pokey, taking the credit for it all. And a lot of folks who are anti-Pope, they're watching this going, oh, man, I don't like to hear what I'm hearing. I don't like to see what I'm seeing. Especially coming out of this guy. I don't know. This is concerning for a lot of people. So anyway, when I saw this last night, I thought to myself, because Trump sees this in some ways as an accomplishment that he's got. And I get it. Cutting red tape. I understand where he's coming from. But an accomplishment that he's got to take credit for. I do get some of this idea that, okay, he's got to remind people that he was responsible. However, you start to break down what exactly is going on, and what we're seeing, very concerning data out of places like UK, very concerning data out of places like Israel. It really makes people start to second guess and question, wait a minute, what happened here? What exactly is going on with these pricks? I'm talking about the the emergency use authorization medications. I'm not talking about the people in Washington. Please don't get it twisted. So this was tweeted yesterday from Mike Cernovich on Twitter, and I think it brings an interesting point. But now he's kind of very pro DeSantis, but he says, look, they're blaming this on Trump now. That's an indicator of how the science is going in the real world. Here's the report that came out of the Politico. He clipped. The Trump administration pressured the FDA to authorize unproven treatments for the you-know-what, and the first poke on an accelerated timeline, according to a House report released Wednesday. The narrative is starting to shift, and some suggest that they are starting to blame him for it. In fact, Cernovich makes that point now. He says now that Trump is the regime-designated bagman for the lockdowns and the jab, we'll start to get real data on what's really happening. So, interesting thought. And could this be their escape hatch? Could this be sort of their way out of it? Do you see Fauci stepping down? Could this be their way of saying, we really didn't want to do this, but Trump made us. And we didn't have the information, and we didn't have the data, and we didn't have the research that we really wanted. But we were forced at the end of the day. We were forced to do this. Operation Warp Speed. They made us do this. Orange man bad. Orange man bad. Could that be part of the idea here? Could that be part of it? Fascinating stuff. Interesting look at it, nevertheless. And I got to tell you, nothing surprises me. Karen says he didn't mandate and kill our economy. You're right about that. But they've lied about all of this. Birx has lied. Fauci's lied. They've all been lying. Sherry says Trump should have called it out years ago. I have various different ideas and thoughts about this. I think he has a difficulty saying when he's made a mistake or if he's made a mistake. And there's various different reasons for that. I think lots of folks are going to have questions in the coming days on this. They will use this because they know it's a weakness, particularly to attack him and to attack his base of support. There are a lot of people that support him. A lot of people voted for him that have just come full circle on all this. And it's interesting stuff. Moms for Liberty excited. They are celebrating 43 wins. School board wins in Florida. I told you about this. And by the way, these two are connected. Big wins in Florida, particularly in school boards. I talked about it yesterday. 21 out of 30 school board candidates DeSantis endorsed won, including 4 out of 7 who faced opponents having strong Democrat Party support. 4 of the remaining 9 candidates are runoff elections and could still win, which would make it 25 out of 30. In Sarasota County, one of the few rebellious counties who defied the governor's mask ban last year, all 3 open seats went to DeSantis-backed candidates. The tides are turning, folks. How this red wave that we've been hearing so much about, how this thing starts, it really is at the most local levels, the parents. The parents are responsible for this uprising. I'm watching the comments in the chat. I don't want you to get me mistaken. I don't want you to think that I am blaming Trump for any of this. I'm just telling you what people are saying and what we're seeing, I think, could be the next wave of misinformation. Disinformation is pointing the finger at him. And I know there are some people that like to see him come out a lot sooner and a lot stronger on some of this stuff. And I think maybe they've got a point. Do I blame him? Of course not. Of course not. But there are things that he could have done. Firing Fauci long time ago. Get rid of that. Dr. Bucks would have been another one. It's finally here. It finally happened. Newsweek ran a story yesterday headline, man tests positive for COVID, monkeypox, and HIV after a Spain trip. Got the monkeypox, the HIV, and the COVID after his trip to Spain. Spain trip. Sounds like a nice holiday in Barcelona or something. Guessing that a festival of some kind was involved. Even without going beyond the Newsweek article, we know the real story because Newsweek admitted the unlucky man had, I hope you don't have kids listening, condomless intercourse with men during his stay in Spain. That's men, plural. He was a busy little traveler. Coffin Jeff Childers makes the point. The Journal of Infection published the report about the 36-year-old Italian man. So he says, I went on to the source for more details. First, the man had tested negative for HIV as recently as September 2021. He was fully jabbed for the you-know-what in late 2021 and had his first Ronabout a month later in January. Then he was again reinfected in June on his Spanish holiday. Within a few days of getting home, he developed blisters from the pox, went to the hospital, and for some reason, they gave him a full STD screening. That's how they caught the H. The hospital gave him a normal COVID screening, which is now how they got his diagnosis with the virus. All the papers reporting the story are pointing out that it's a first-time triple infection, like the guy won an mRNA bingo or something. I hope they give him some kind of prize. Jeff suggests a Darwin Award or something. But seriously, this is a terrible sign for the man's immune system. He seems to have picked up everything that was going around in spite of his active lifestyle. He'd previously avoided all of that, including the HIV, until this year. I wonder what could have depressed his normal immune defenses so much. The experts, he says, are baffled. CNBC ran a story yesterday, headline, Omicron-specific booster shots are just weeks away. Here's who will and won't be eligible. Oh, goody. Are you all lined up and excited? Oh, no. Sherry, don't cancel your trip to Spain. I don't think you need to do that. The boosters are coming. Who's excited? Step right up. Join the line. They've labeled the new shots bivalent, or bivalent. They're supposedly protect from two variants. Pfizer and Moderna claim the formulations target both Wuhan strain and the BA.5, but for some reason, the new shots will only be available to people who already took the first ones. So in order to get these new ones, you're going to have to get all of them. If you're unjabbed, you won't be eligible for the updated formula until you complete a primary series with the existing jabs that are out there, the hokey pokies, the Fauci ouchies. Now, they'll be too upset about that. I know you're disappointed. Maybe Maybe jabbed people need the new shots more than the unjabbed people do. So just give them a little bit of credit. And like I said earlier, DeSantis fired up wanting to toss the little elf, Fauci, the little elf on the shelf. Toss him into the Potomac. And now I love that story because is anybody else tired of this guy is what he said. And everybody is tired. Now there's a small population that just kind of still hang on every word that comes out of his mouth. But, most folks are done. They're done with all the regulations, the restrictions, the lockdowns, all of the this, that, and the other. They're done with it all, and they want to move past it. They certainly don't want to hear from Scarf Queen, who's lied to us, or Fauci Ouchie, who's been a part of it as well, caught in the act, along with the guy like, Francis Collins, the NIH. We're done. Just like clockwork, Political ran a story yesterday, headline, Trump White House exerted pressure on FDA for the emergency use authorizations. This is the story I was telling you about earlier. Democrats in the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis released a scathing report yesterday that, among other things, blames rushed jabs on President Trump, or at least started building the foundation of blame. Political article said all of this. The Trump administration pressured the FDA to authorize the first jab on accelerated timelines. The Democrat investigation also documents the White House attempts to block the FDA from collecting additional safety data on the jabs. The Trump administration also tried to pressure the FDA to authorize the first jab ahead of the presidential election. Now, it doesn't make sense to blame Trump for rushing the jabs if the jabs work great, since he's the hero in that scenario. It only makes sense to set this hit piece up if they are trash. Coffee Covett's Jeff Childers makes that point. Trump has once again put Democrats in a box. He's continuing to take the credit for the one thing they are most boastful about. He says, sure, we can argue about Trump's strategy, his original role, whether he was fooled or not, and whether he should disavow those jabs. But let's just look at the timing, which is more, he says, much more interesting than that well-worn argument. This tentatively anti-jab report was released at the same time as Fauci's resignation, the CDC reorganization, and the mea culpa, and the White House's signal to an end of free shots, as well as the HHS's elevation of a new agency to take over pandemics. It's more evidence that a major pivot away from shots is underway. But why? Great question. Rand Paul is not impressed at all. No amount of overhaul at the CDC will work if they're not honest about the scientific data, he said. In fact, Rand Paul making the case, Fauci's resignation will not prevent a full-throated investigation into the origins of the pandemic. He'll be asked to testify under oath. Fauci knows that's going to happen. Either way, whether he's serving as the highest paid employee of the federal government or not. In one of the strangest stories reported today, this comes from the Daily Mail in the UK, now a new threat, a new cause they blame on heart attacks, sudden and unexpected heart attacks. Car fumes. Car fumes from exhaust and heavy braking raise risk of heart attacks, according to a study. Oh, it's the car fumes. That's what we're dealing with now. For some weird reason, it's always heart attacks and strokes caused by ordinary everyday things, like car fumes. The study, they say, is the issue is responsible is the car fumes at this point. That's what the real problem is. Remember, we had a lot of these weird things that came out. Oh, this is responsible. That's responsible. Here's what might be causing a riot. The question is, in the quiet part out loud, is there's a rise in sudden and unexpected deaths, heart attacks, strokes, things like that. It really is something. It's very, very concerning, I think, for a lot of folks. So many young people dying when they just didn't have to. It's a shame. We continue to see these issues. And they don't really want to deal with what's really happening. They certainly don't want to talk about that. You never get the truth. That's why we try to give you a little bit more perspective and context to some of the stories that you just won't hear anywhere else. What are New Yorkers saying about Biden's student loan debt proposal?
You will pay for it one way or another.
National debt goes up. This is going to make it go up. We're not even going after our debt.
You will pay for it one way or another.
People are very upset, and of course, on the streets when they're stopped and asked about this, they know that you and I and everyone else are on the hook for Biden's election year extravaganza. New York State Senate Democrats saying just the other day, it's socialism that's winning elections now. Well, she may have a point. Biden may be attempting this socialism election strategy himself. New York State Senate Democrat primary winner Kristen Gonzalez. We really proved that socialism wins. We're not going anywhere. And we will not stop until we see a socialist slate across this city, she says.
I know we're saving the speeches for a little later, but today we really proved that socialism wins.
What is she, all of 12? Look at this girl.
We are not going anywhere, and we will not stop until we see a socialist slate across this city.
Look at these kids. They're all living in mom and dad's basement right now. You folks, you've already got socialism. You're living in mom and dad's basement. What are you talking about? None of this makes any sense. Yeah. Socialism's great. Ronald Reagan said, I think Matt posted this earlier, the place where socialism works is, what was it, Matt? Heaven where they don't need it. And hell, what was it? Heaven where they don't need it, and hell where, hang on, I'm going to have to look this up. Socialism only works in two places, heaven where they don't need it and hell where they already have it. Hey, nothing to see here, folks. Only a tray of mail-in ballots suddenly discovered in a post office nearly 2 years after an election. Oh, this story coming today. It's out of the blaze, and this happened in the MAR. Where is that? Baltimore. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Just a tray of ballots that were never delivered, hanging out at the post office. Baltimore's WMAR does the story. Nearly 2 years after the 2020 election, some voters in Baltimore just received their mail-in ballots. Baltimore voter Nick Frasone contacted WMAR TV after he received his 2020 mail-in ballot nearly 2 years after he was notified that his ballot would be delivered. Frasone told WMAR he knew his ballot had gone missing. This is because in late September, he received an email from the post office informing him that his ballot would soon be delivered, but it never showed up. Eventually, he got a replacement. It just never came, he said. So then I had to call the Board of Elections, and I had to go in person, get a replacement. Tom Ouellette, spokesman of the United States Postal Service, explained in the statement that the United States Postal Service found an innocuous tray of undelivered mail-in ballots from the 2020 election earlier this month. That's why folks are receiving those ballots now. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. The most safe, the most secure, the most reliable, the most professional, the most glorious. What are you going to do? What can you do? California now moving toward banning new cars that run only on gas by the year 2035. You know, I told you earlier today, 20 million Americans already right now are at risk of having their electric shut off. 20 million Americans are behind on their electric bills. What happens when everyone starts plugging their Teslas in? There won't be enough wind, solar, and unicorn farts to power it all. The major climate regulation to be proposed by the car clog state would have far-reaching effects on the auto industry, according to the Washington Post. Can you imagine? Can't even buy them. You know, I've got a friend who's got a truck, and he said, you know, every few years I want to sell my truck, trade it in, or buy a new one. And he said, you know, I'm looking at the new ones, and he said, I was going to wait a few more years, but he said, I'm thinking about getting one now because I don't know if I'll be able to get one a couple of years. He kind of chuckled, and you know, I said, okay, maybe there's something to that, but yes, it turns out there might be more truth than what we realized in this case. Why? Because it turns out California is the first, and you know, it's like Europe. They test things out there first, and then they send them our way. California says no new cars that run only on gas by 2035. In other words, you can still buy a hybrid, but you could buy electric cars, etc. Can't buy one that runs only on gas, probably diesel for that matter as well. California set to move closer to banning the sale of new cars running only on gasoline by 2035, a major step in the car-loving state's fight against climate change, they say. Washington Post reports the expected embrace of the policy by the state's Air Resources Board during a meeting scheduled for Thursday comes after Governor Gavin Newsom set a target in 2020 for cleaning up California's auto fleet. The proposed regulation would set strict deadlines for meeting that goal, forcing automakers to step up production for cleaner vehicles. Considerably starting in 2026, the requirements would only speed forward from there until only zero-emission passenger cars, pickup trucks, and SUVs, as well as a limited number of plug-in hybrids, are allowed to be sold in the state by 2025. Or 2035, rather. Yada, yada, yada. Wind, solar, unicorn farts. California. Yeah, there's nothing that surprises me with any of this stuff anymore. Does any of that surprise you? There's no way. I mean, of course. Of course, folks. This is where they want to go. This is where they're heading. I saw just a really bad video. Let's see if I can find it real quick for you. Yeah, here it is. This is out of, this looked like Europe. Battery-powered tools and chargers catch fire. Electric cars catching fire. And I think this is some sort of a truck or SUV or something. The battery explodes, and what you witness is what could happen in your very own garage in the middle of the night without any sort of warning. Watch this. Whoa. First starts the smoke, then bam, look at that, flames firing out of the back of that thing. Wow. Imagine that happening inside your home, inside the garage of your home. And some people have, right on top of that garage, rooms, bedrooms, people sleeping. In the middle of the night, what would you be able to do? I think we'll hear about more of these in the days to come. It's shocking footage, but it's footage that I don't think is going to be, if that's the case, probably won't be rare. Probably won't be rare after it's all said and done with. Another shocking, strange situation happened just the other day. Did you see this? Marjorie Taylor Greene, she had her home swatted after a fake 911 call was reported. They said there was a shooting that occurred at her home. Of course, police raced there. Early Wednesday morning, an unknown person filed a fake shooting report that led police to respond to her home. Last night, I was swatted, she said, just after 1 a.m. I can't express enough gratitude to my local law enforcement here in Rome. Floyd County Greene tweeted Wednesday, police officers are investigating after someone placed that 911 call and reported that a subject was shot multiple times at an address within city limits. Police department said in a statement, officers responded to the location. They discovered it was the Congresswoman's home. Greene informed police that there was no issue and the call was determined to be a prank commonly known as swatting. Well, it's a lot worse than being just a prank because these swatting calls have resulted in people dying. They've been killed because of them. The Rome Police Department said it received a second 911 call from an individual who used a computer-generated voice and stated they were upset about Greene's political views on transgender youth rights. The Rome Police Department Criminal Investigation Division is working in conjunction with the United States Capitol Police on this investigation, police said. This is an active investigation and no further information can be released at this time. So, I don't know if you've heard this or you've seen it before, but it has happened. People have been swatted in the middle of the night. Police show up with SWAT gear and they are there on the scene, ready to, try and figure out what had happened. Maybe go in and even have to engage somebody who's armed and still in the premises. And then homeowners come out and they've got their weapons on them. And they don't know if it's police knocking at the door 3, 4 o'clock in the morning or somebody else. And then chaos ensues. And folks, this is dangerous stuff. This is serious business for a lot of folks. And it's happening now to a congresswoman. Was it Tim Pool, I think, who had been swatted not too long ago? Tim Pool. While he was on the air doing a podcast, in fact. It's wild stuff. Here she is talking about it yesterday with Jack Basoba.
Happy to go through detail by detail. So I was sound asleep. Of course, never expected anyone to be coming to my house at that time in the morning. Heard some knocks on the door, heard my doorbell, saw some lights outside, heard people outside my windows in my yard. And I jumped out of bed, threw my clothes on, and I picked up my gun. That was my instinct because I'm a gun owner. I'm a Second Amendment supporter, and I believe in defending myself. And normally I answer the door with a gun, especially if it's someone that I don't expect coming to my home. But for some reason, I had this weird gut instinct to not take my gun with me to the front door, which was very out of norm for me. So I put my gun down and I just went down the hallway, and the house was still dark. And I came around the corner and looked out the windows, and there I saw the police outside, and they, they had their guns. They were ready because they had received a terrible phone call to the 911 center. And so I walked up there and I saw them. I was really startled, and I couldn't think, like, why are they here? Did something bad happen? That was what I was thinking. I thought maybe someone had been hurt or killed, and they were coming to talk to me about it. And I opened the door, and the officer standing there, he said, "Ma'am, are you okay? Is everything okay here?" But it was the body posture of the police that was really concerning me. Like, it had me I was upset. I was afraid. I was like, there's something terribly wrong. And I said, yeah, I'm okay. I was sleeping. I'm like trying to understand what they're doing. And he said, hold on, let me get my sergeant. And then they came from around the corner and came up the steps and told me that someone had called in to the 911 call center here in Rome, Georgia, and had reported that someone had shot either her husband or her boyfriend 5 times in the chest in a bathtub. And then they were sending the police to supposedly go help. But then they called back a second time and said, there's children in the home. So with those phone calls, they were setting up a very serious, dangerous scenario in a home, right? And police officers, when they get those kind of calls, they know what they're going into. They have to be prepared for it. They have to get there immediately. It sounds like they made it sound like there were children in danger at our house. And so the police officers, they got to my house so fast. But then I said, no, this is all wrong. I said, come inside. I brought them inside. I said, they said, yeah, we realize what's happened is you've been swatted. And they were upset, rightfully so, and angry. And I was very upset. I could not believe someone would do that. And I was shocked because not only did they put my life and my family's life in danger, they also put the police officers' lives in danger. And so whoever this person is, they deserve to be locked up.
Oh, I'm sure the FBI's on it right away, right? I'm sure they're probably investigating this, taking it just as seriously as they would a raid on Mar-a-Lago for National Archive documents. I'm sure they're getting right down to the bottom of it. Right down to the bottom of figuring out exactly what happened here. Of course, making sure it never happens again. Hey, we do have some good news today. Ryan Kelly, before I get to the good news, I just saw this. Ryan Kelly has endorsed Shane Hernandez for lieutenant governor in Michigan. Let me see if I can pull it up. I got to tell you, I have been more and more impressed with Ryan. His selflessness. Let me say that again so it's clear. Selflessness. His willingness to fight the battle. In politics, we find a lot of people who are obsessed with themselves. We find a lot of people who are really ego-centered. Ryan has not been one of those individuals. Since the primary, Ryan has put all his full weight and focus and force, along with the grassroots, into fighting the 2 proposals. MichiganSaysNo.com is the website, MichiganSaysNo.com. They have put the full weight and force and focus behind fighting these proposals for abortion, fighting the proposals for election theft. Really, that's what it would be. It would be completely making it constitutional and permanent. All of the shenanigans that were pulled in September or in 2020. Ryan has, I believe, endorsed Tudor Diane. He's also now endorsed the lieutenant governor pick from Tudor as well. Here's what his endorsement reads. Michigan has gone through a lot these last 2.5 years. Gretchen Whitmer has plagued our state far worse than COVID-19. For many, the August 2nd primary did not turn out how we had hoped. 5 candidates narrowed down to 1. Well, you know, when you have 5 candidates, 60% of folks voting, chances are their candidate won't be picked, right? So he goes on to say, 5 candidates narrowed down to 1, leaving hundreds of thousands of voters disappointed that their candidate did not win. I understand your pain and frustration, but we must not lose sight of what is at stake. We are left with 2 choices, Whitmer or Dixon. The Republican state convention is this Saturday. In just under 11 weeks, November 8th, we will vote in the general election. Absentee voting starts in roughly 1 month. We must get this right now. I have personally spoken with Shane Hernandez. He has a strong conservative voting record, unapologetic on voicing his conservative opinions, and is knowledgeable on the important issues Michigan is facing. Delegates should confirm his nomination. You and I both understand the importance of getting Matt DePerno, Christina Karamo, American First legislators, and county commissioners and conservative school board candidates across the finish line this November. Ask yourself this important question. Is Dixon a better choice than Whitmer? The answer is obvious, and we must charge forward with resolve to defeat Whitmer and her cronies. My fellow freedom fighters, be bold, keep the fight in you strong, stick to your principles, speak truth, stay encouraged to hold those we elect accountable, and let's fire the Whitmer crime family. There you have it, folks. Another endorsement, and of course, good to see folks teaming up in the grassroots and fighting together. I love that. I absolutely love that. If you haven't seen it yet, over at standupmichigan.com, Ron Armstrong did a very nice, like an hour-long interview with Shane Hernandez. If you'd like to get a little more information about who he is and maybe some of the details that you'd like to know, he did a really good, really nice interview with him. I'd suggest checking that out. Shane Hernandez. There. We talked to him earlier this week. I was impressed as well. But folks, lots to discuss there. In fact, I think I don't see it up here yet, but today I believe if it's not up here yet, it will be. The event that Tammy Clark and Kristen Megan did together, inviting industrial hygienists from all over the state, should also be later on available if it's not here yet. Standupmichigan.com, another great resource, because you can use that resource, pass along, share it with other folks that are in the industry, but not only share it with folks in the industry. Yeah, it looks like it'll be up at 3 p.m. today. So there you have it. Share it with folks in the industry, but also share it when you're fighting the fight in school boards, county chapters, or your commissions, et cetera, places like that. Great resource, great opportunity to share as well. All right, another big piece of good news. Trigger laws in 3 states today, Idaho, Tennessee, and Texas, will take effect, banning abortions, with few exceptions in those 3 states, Idaho, Tennessee, and Texas. On Friday, North Dakota's trigger law banning abortions, that's a murder of innocent children in the womb there, on most circumstances set to take effect. And on Saturday, an Oklahoma law enacting higher criminal penalties for performing illegal abortions, murdering the innocent children in the womb, will take effect as well, adding the state's already tough laws prohibiting the procedure. We're talking about murder, again, of innocent children in the womb. Let's call it what it is. The laws will impact about 10 million women, they say, across 5 states. And how many babies? How many babies will be saved? Incredible news, folks. And one piece that I thought you ought to hear before we closed it all down today. Always a pleasure. Back tomorrow morning. We're going to kick off the weekend. Firing it up with you right here. 9:06 tomorrow morning. Hey, it's Kristen. Kristen, wishing you well and the best. I just saw something online. I hope you're doing well. We'll again make a point to promote that and talk about it tomorrow. So back tomorrow morning, 9:06. Wishing you the best. God bless, folks. Make it a great day. We know the cost of everything is going through the roof right now, particularly with inflation on everything from gas to groceries. What if you could fight back and at the same time make sure you vote with your dollar and stop spending money with the big box stores, the local conglomerates? The folks are trying to take your money and push it towards causes that just don't align with your values. You know what I'm talking about, that Bullseye store. Every time you walk in, they're always preaching politics at you. They're always trying to corrupt the minds of our kids. And of course, every time, no matter who we spend our money with, these big box stores and these big woke conglomerates, every time we do that, they take our money and they shift it right on back to the mainstream media to buy more advertising, to promote their poisonous products, a lot of them. It's incredible. We see it happen on a daily basis. And whether the mainstream media is pushing fake news of the day or they're pushing some of the woke propaganda on your kids through some of the weird programming that they have going on now, especially if you look at Disney. By the way, programming, when you hear of a TV program or radio program, you realize why that is, right? It's not the content that's being programmed, it's you and your kids. Make the switch today. We already vote with our dollars. You might well be a little more conscious of it. Every time you spend $1 with these companies, you're giving them another bullet to put in that gun. Stop doing it. Take the gun back. Start spending your money, hard-earned money, with a Patriot-owned alternative. Family-owned, made in America, prices that aren't going to go through the roof like some of these other companies with inflation. Find out more when you go to patriotswitch.com. Find out exactly what we're up to. Put in your name, your cell phone number, your email, and click my name, Justin, from that growing list of Patriots that are singing the praises. We made the switch back in February, and we couldn't be happier, my family and I. Saving money, sleeping well at night, knowing that we are in the fight. patriotswitch.com. Thanks to the folks at patriotswitch.com today.